The mining colony of New Carthage baked under the red glow of its dying sun. Dust swirled through the airlock corridors as the last shift of workers trudged back from the asteroid fields. Their exosuits were caked in the fine red powder that got everywhere, in the joints, in the air filters, even in the rations. If you weren't careful, Captain Elias Vance stood on the observation deck of the USN Bastion, his knuckles white around the railing. The orbital station creaked around him, its aging metal frame protesting the constant micrometeorite impacts. His reflection in the reinforced glass showed a face carved by decades of hard decisions, a jagged scar running from temple to jaw, courtesy of a pirate boarding action near Tau Ceti. "Sir?" Lieutenant Kara Holt approached, her boots clicking against the deck plating. She held a datapad, the glow casting sharp shadows across her sharp features. The last ore shipment's been processed. Colony governor says they're running low on medical supplies again. Vance didn't turn. Tell him to file a formal request through the supply chain. We're not a damn courier service. A warning klaxon blared. Red light strobed across the command deck. "Contact," shouted Ensign Rivas from the sensor station. His voice cracked. Multiple warp signatures incoming, hundreds of them. The starfield outside, twisted space itself, seemed to tear open, vomiting forth a nightmare fleet. Sickle-shaped Vorac harvesters emerged from warp, their organic hulls glistening like wet chitin. Spines and barbed tendrils extended from their flanks, giving them the appearance of deep-sea predators. The lead ship, a monstrosity 3 times the size of the Bastion, pulsed with sickly green bioluminescence. "Battle stations," Vance said, his voice calm. "Seal the colony. Get those miners underground." The comm crackled to life. A guttural voice, distorted by some alien vocal apparatus, filled the bridge. "This is Overseer Kroll of the Vorac Swarm. Your world has been marked for harvest. Surrender your biomass." Kara's fingers flew across her console. "They're launching drop pods toward the colony, sir. Hundreds of them." Vance activated the fleet-wide channel. "All hands, this is the captain. We have hostiles inbound. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not." The Bastion shuddered as a Vorac energy weapon grazed their shields. Alarms wailed. On the main viewer, the Vorac flagship unfolded like some grotesque flower, revealing a gaping maw lined with pulsating tendrils. It was a ship designed to terrify, to break wills before the first shot was fired. Vance straightened his uniform. He opened a channel to the Vorac. "This is Captain Elias Vance of the United Earth Systems, Navy. You are in violation of sovereign human space. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately." Laughter, a wet clicking sound, echoed through the comm. "Your pitiful defenses amuse us. Human, your species is weak. We have consumed 1,000 worlds. You will be no different." Kara muttered under her breath. They really don't know who they're dealing with. Vance's fingers hovered over the weapons console. "Lieutenant Holt, activate the Mac batteries. Target their lead ship's propulsion." "Aye, sir, railguns charging." Outside, the Bastion's massive magnetic accelerator cannons hummed to life. Coils along their length glowed blue as they built up an impossible charge. The Vorac fleet advanced, confident. Their ships moved like a school of predators circling wounded prey. Drop pods rained down on New Carthage, smashing into the dusty plains outside the colony domes. "Max at full charge," Kara reported. Vance watched the tactical display. The Vorac was so close now, so sure of their victory. Fire. The Bastion bucked as twin hypervelocity rounds tore through space. The projectiles crossed the distance in a blink. No visible trail, no warning. The lead Vorac harvester simply came apart. The round punched through its organic armor like paper, detonating somewhere deep in its vitals. The ship convulsed, spewing thick black ichor into the void. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as internal organs ruptured. Silence on the bridge. Then, from the Vorac fleet, panicked transmissions. "Their weapons, they penetrate our defenses. How is this possible?" Kara allowed herself a tight smile. "They thought we still used lasers." Vance opened the comm again. Last chance, Kroll. Turn your fleet around. The response was immediate rage. You dare wound us, you will suffer. All your kind will suffer. The remaining Vorac ships surged forward, their organic weapons glowing with building energy. Vance sighed. Well, we tried being nice. He turned to Kara. Prepare the emergency beacon and get me a channel to Fleet Command. Outside, the void filled with the light of 100 charging weapons. The Bastion's shields flared under the first impacts. Somewhere below, the miners of New Carthage huddled in their bunkers, listening to the thunder of war above. The harvest had come. But humanity was no one's prey. The Bastion shuddered as the first Vorac plasma rounds slammed into its shields. Captain Elias Vance didn't flinch. He'd seen worse in the Belt Wars. The bridge lights flickered red as damage reports scrolled across the main display. Shields at Faye, Lieutenant Kara Holt called out, her fingers dancing across the tactical console. They're focusing their fire on our starboard side. Vance studied the holographic display. The Vorac Vanguard ships moved like a swarm of insects, their sickle-shaped hulls weaving through the asteroid field. Their weapons glowed an eerie green, charging for another volley. Helm, evasive pattern Delta, Vance ordered. Bring us about to face them head. On the Bastion groaned as its thrusters fired, swinging the massive warship around. Outside the viewport, the red-lit mining colony of New Carthage grew smaller as they pulled away, drawing the Vorac fleet with them. Railguns charged and ready, Captain, announced Chief Gunnery Officer Rivas, his voice tight with anticipation. Vance allowed himself a grim smile. Fire at will. The Bastion's magnetic accelerator cannons thundered. Hypersonic tungsten rounds streaked across the void, slamming into the lead Vorac cruiser. The alien ship's organic armor buckled like wet paper, its chitinous plates splintering apart. A geyser of thick, black ichor erupted into space as the round punched clean through the hull. Kara let out a sharp laugh. Direct hit. Their shields didn't even slow it down. On the comms, panicked Vorac chatter filled the channel. Their guttural language was untranslatable, but the tone was unmistakable. Shock, fear. Adjust firing solution, Vance said calmly. Target their propulsion clusters. Another volley roared from the Bastion. This time, the round struck the bulbous engines at the rear of a Vorac destroyer. The alien ship convulsed, its thrusters exploding in a cascade of violet flame. It spun wildly out of control, colliding with two smaller escort vessels. The impact tore all three ships apart in a silent fireball. Confirmed kills on 3 hostiles, Kara reported, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Vance watched as the remaining Vorac ships broke formation, their smooth, predatory maneuvers turning erratic. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens weren't advancing. They were hesitating. Captain Comms Officer Chen called out, "We're picking up a transmission from the Vorac flagship, audio only. Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with a distorted, guttural voice. "Human vessel, your weapons impossible. Our scouts reported your defenses were primitive." Vance exchanged a glance with Kara. She smirked. "You relied on outdated intelligence," Vance replied. "A mistake." The Vorac commander, presumably Overseer Kroll, snarled. "No matter, your pitiful colony will still fall. We will feast on your—" Kara muted the channel. "Charming fellow." "Bring us about for another pass," Vance ordered. "Target their command ship." As the Bastion swung around, the Vorac fleet finally seemed to realize the gravity of their error. Their formation tightened defensively, their sickle ships clustering together like a school of frightened fish. "Railguns recharged," Rivas announced. "Locked on their flagship. Fire." The Bastion shuddered again as its cannons unleashed hell. The tungsten rounds crossed the distance in seconds, punching through the Vorac flagship's bow. The alien vessel split open like rotten fruit, its innards spilling into the void. Secondary explosions rippled down its length as its power core detonated, lighting up the darkness with an emerald fireball. The remaining Vorac ships broke. Some turned tail and fled toward the system's edge. Others fired blindly, their plasma bolts going wide as panic set in. Pursuit course? Kara asked, already plotting intercept vectors. Vance shook his head. Let them run. We've made our point. On the tactical display, the Vorac fleet's retreat was chaotic. Their once proud formation shattered. The Bastion stood alone amid the wreckage of their vanguard, its hull scorched but unbroken. Kara leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. They really thought we'd be easy pickings. Vance allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. First rule of hunting, Lieutenant. Yeah, make sure your prey isn't armed with railguns. The bridge crew chuckled, the tension easing slightly, but Vance's eyes remained fixed on the retreating Vorac ships. This wasn't over. The real fight was still coming. Damage report, he said, turning back to business. Minor hull breaches on decks 7 and 9, Kara replied. Shields holding at Faye. Railguns need 15 minutes to cool down. Get repair teams on those breaches, and prep the missile batteries. I want them hot if the Vorac regroup. As the crew sprang into action, Vance studied the tactical display again. The Vorac had expected a slaughter. Instead, they'd gotten their noses bloodied. And the worst part, they had no idea what was waiting for them behind the moon. The Bastion shuddered as another volley of bio. Plasma splashed against its shields. Warning klaxons wailed through the bridge, painting everything in pulsing red light. Captain Elias Vance gripped his command chair, his knuckles white. The Vorac weren't just attacking, they were toying with them. Shields at Faye, Lieutenant Kara Holt reported, her voice tight. Her fingers danced across the tactical display, rerouting power from non-essential systems. They're not even using their main weapons yet, just probes. Vance didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the view screen, where the Vorac dreadnought, the Moor, loomed like a nightmare-given form. It was massive, easily 20 times the size of the Bastion, its hull a grotesque fusion of chitin and writhing tendrils. At its bow, a gaping maw pulsed with sickly green energy, a vortex forming as it prepared to fire. Captain, Kara said sharper this time. They're powering up the planet, Cracker. A cold smile touched Vance's lips, right on schedule. Across the bridge, the comms officer stiffened. Incoming transmission, Vorac Overseer Kroll. The screen flickered, and the alien warlord's face filled the display. His chitinous plates gleamed under the dim light of his command chamber, his 4 black eyes burning with amusement. Human, Kroll rumbled, his voice like grinding bones. You fight well for prey, but this ends now. Vance leaned forward, his scarred face unreadable. You talk too much for something about to die. Kroll's mandibles twitched in what might have been a laugh. Your defiance amuses us, but the Moor hungers, and when it feeds, nothing remains. Behind him, the vortex at the dreadnought's bow pulsed brighter, the energy coalescing into a swirling maelstrom. Any last words, Softkin? Vance didn't blink. Yeah, you shouldn't have turned your back on Earth. The transmission cut. Kara exhaled sharply. Captain, if this doesn't work. It'll work, Vance said, his voice calm. Trust the plan. Outside, the Moor's vortex reached critical mass. A beam of emerald energy lanced out, streaking toward the Bastion. The ship's AI screamed a collision warning. Brace for impact, Vance roared. The beam hit, and splashed harmlessly against the Bastion's shields. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, across the bridge, consoles lit up with frantic alerts. Kara's eyes widened. They're rerouting the energy? Vance grinned. Not rerouting, storing. Deep within the Bastion's hull, experimental capacitors groaned under the strain, drinking in the Moor's planet, cracking beam like a sponge. The ship trembled, its frame vibrating as power levels spiked into the red. On the view screen, the Moor hesitated. The vortex flickered, its energy output stuttering. Kroll's voice crackled over the comms, confusion bleeding through. What are you doing? Vance didn't answer. He tapped a command into his console. A single word flashed across every screen on the bridge. Deploy. From behind the nearby moon, Three shadows detached, silent, sleek, and deadly. The USN Vengeance, USN Retribution, and USN Wrath slid into position, their hulls shimmering as their cloaking fields disengaged. Kara let out a breathless laugh. They took the bait. The Vorac fleet panicked ships scrambled, their formations breaking apart as the new human warships powered up. The Moor's vortex sputtered, its energy reserves drained from the failed attack. Kroll's scream of rage was cut short as the Vengeance fired first, a blue-white beam. Pure, concentrated void energy lanced from its prow. It struck the Moor dead center, shearing through its organic armor like paper. The dreadnought shrieked, a sound that reverberated across every comm channel, its hull splitting open in a geyser of ichor and molten flesh. Secondary explosions rippled along its length, tearing the behemoth apart from the inside. Kara whooped, slamming a fist on her console. Direct hit. The Moor's breaking up. Vance watched, satisfaction curling in his chest as the Vorac flagship came apart. Chunks of its carcass spun into the void, trailing fire and viscera. The remaining Vorac ships floundered, their coordination shattered. One of them, a cruiser, tried to flee. The Retribution locked on and fired. The void beam punched clean through its engines, sending it spiraling into a nearby asteroid. Kroll's voice returned, ragged with fury and disbelief. You lured us. This was a trap. Vance keyed the comms. His voice was ice. You came for prey. You found wolves. The Bastion's railguns cycled up, their barrels glowing white. Hot now, Vance said softly. Let's show them what happens when you hunt humans. The guns fired. The Vorac died screaming. The Moor's energy vortex pulsed like a starving heart, its gravitational pull already dragging smaller debris toward its gaping maw. Captain Elias Vance watched the Vorac dreadnought fill the Bastion's view screen, his knuckles white around the command rail. The ship groaned under the strain, bulkheads creaking as artificial gravity fought against the pull. Structural integrity at Faye, Lieutenant Kara Holt reported, her voice tight. Another 30 seconds and we're scrap. Vance didn't blink. Hold position on the comms. Kroll's laughter rumbled like distant thunder. Your defiance amuses us human, but the Moor does not leave prey uneaten. The Vorac overseer's chitinous face filled the screen, his four eyes gleaming with triumph. We will savor your world next. Vance exhaled slowly. Then he smiled. You shouldn't have turned your back on Earth. A proximity alarm shrieked. The Bastion's tactical officer jerked upright. Captain knew contacts, emerging from behind the moon's shadow. Three massive silhouettes slid into view, their hulls matte, black and angular, devoid of running lights. The USN Vengeance, USN Retribution, and USN Wrath, humanity's newest predators. Kroll's mandibles twitched. More prey. Vance tapped his console, a single command. The void lances fired. Twin beams of blue, white energy lanced from each ship, converging on the Moor. The dreadnought's organic armor vaporized on contact, the beams slicing clean through its core. For a heartbeat, the Moor hung there, split neatly in half, its innards exposed to the void. Then the reactor detonated, the explosion rippling outward in a silent, fiery bloom. The bridge of the Bastion erupted, cheers, disbelieving laughter. Kara slammed her fist onto her console. Direct hits. The Moor is gone, Vance finished, watching the debris field expand. Kroll's transmission crackled, his voice raw with something no Vorac had ever uttered before. Fear. Impossible. Your species lacks such weapons. Vance leaned forward. You came here expecting miners and freighters, but humanity. He bared his teeth. We've been hunting monsters since we lived in caves. The Vengeance's captain, a woman with steel, grey hair, and a voice like ground glass, hailed the Bastion. Captain Vance, sorry we're late. Had to let the Vorac get nice and comfortable. Kara snorted. They looked plenty comfortable right up until you bisected their flagship. On the tactical display, the remaining Vorac ships floundered, their formation collapsing into chaos. The Retribution and Wrath moved like wolves, circling panicked deer, herding them toward the bastions. Guns, Kroll's ship, a cruiser designated Blood Talon, spun wildly, its thrusters flaring as it tried to disengage. All ships retreat, fall back to the Wrath's Mach round punched through the Blood Talon's engines, sending it spiraling. Kroll's transmission dissolved into static. Vance straightened his uniform. All ships advance, no survivors? The human fleet moved as one. Railguns thundered, fighters streaked like vengeful hornets. Vorac ships died screaming, their organic hulls no match for human steel and spite. Aboard the Vengeance, Admiral Riker watched the slaughter unfold. They never even considered we'd fight back, he mused. His XO, a grizzled veteran with a cybernetic eye, chuckled. Predators never do, right up until the prey bites back. Riker keyed the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Riker to all human vessels. The Vorac came to harvest. Let's show them what happens when humanity reaps instead. The Bastion's guns roared again. In the darkness of space, the Vorac learned a terrible truth. Humanity hadn't been hiding. They'd been waiting. And now the hunt was theirs. The Vorac fleet shattered like glass under humanity's hammer. What had begun as a triumphant harvest had turned into a panicked rout. Alien ships that had once moved with predatory grace now twisted in space, their organic hulls rupturing under sustained railgun fire. The Bastion's bridge crew cheered as another cruiser exploded, its bioluminescent guts spilling into the void. Captain Vance didn't join the celebration. His eyes remained locked on the tactical display. They're breaking formation, he said. Kara, give me intercept vectors on anything trying to flee. Lieutenant Holt's fingers danced across her console. Already on it, sir. Fighters are moving to cut off their retreat paths. She grinned. They're not used to being the ones running, are they? On the view screen, a cluster of Vorac corvettes banked hard, their sickle-shaped silhouettes twisting away from the battle. Before they could jump to warp, a squadron of Raptor-class interceptors streaked into view, their afterburners painting crimson trails across the black. Missiles lanced out, and 3 corvettes detonated in quick succession. The 4th tried to roll away, only to be caught in the Bastion's targeting solution. Fire, Vance ordered. The magnetic accelerator cannon thundered. A tungsten round the size of a ground car punched through the corvette's midsection, splitting it in two. The halves spun apart, spewing thick black fluid that froze instantly in the vacuum. Kroll's voice crackled over the comms, his growl now edged with something no Vorac had ever admitted to feeling: fear. You will pay for this. Human. The swarm does not forget. Vance leaned forward, his scarred face lit by the glow of the tactical display. Tell your swarm this, Kroll. Humanity remembers everything. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their command ship. Full barrage. The Bastion's railguns cycled up again, but before they could fire, the USN Retribution slid into position beside them. Its void lances hummed to life, the air around the weapon arrays shimmering with barely contained energy. Retribution has lock, Kara reported. Let them finish it, Vance said. The beams lanced out, brilliant blue, white lines of annihilation. They sliced through the Vorac command ship like a scalpel through flesh. For a heartbeat, the vessel hung there, split cleanly in half. Then the reactor cores breached, and the explosion lit up the battlefield like a miniature sun. Debris pinged against the Bastion's hull as the shockwave rolled past. On the bridge, the crew watched in silence as the last organized resistance crumbled. What remained of the Vorac fleet was now a scattering of individual ships, each desperately trying to escape. All squadrons, Vance said, opening a fleet. Wide channel, clean, up protocols, no survivors. Across the battlefield, human fighters moved with ruthless efficiency. They hunted the fleeing Vorac like wolves culling a herd, their pilots' voices calm and professional over the comms. Fox, 3, Splash 1. Tally on that straggler, engaging. Got a live one trying to hide in the asteroid field. moving to intercept. One Vorac cruiser, its hull pockmarked with burns and ruptures, made a last, desperate attempt to fight back. It spun toward the USN Wrath, its remaining weapons spitting globs of plasma. The Wrath's point defense guns shredded the attack's mid-flight, and then its main battery spoke. The cruiser's spine snapped, the vessel folding in on itself before detonating in a silent fireball. Kara exhaled slowly. They really thought they could just show up and take whatever they wanted. Vance didn't smile. They'll learn. He tapped a command into his console. All ships, this is Bastion, actual. Rally point Delta, we're not done yet. As the human fleet regrouped, the scale of the victory became clear. Wreckage drifted where the Vorac armada had been, the shattered remains of a force that had terrorized a dozen species. The Bastion's crew moved with quiet confidence, their earlier tension replaced by something harder, something colder. Over the comms, a fighter pilot's voice broke the silence. "Hey, Command, we've got a life pod here, Vorac signature." Vance didn't hesitate. "Scuttle it." A pause. Then, "With pleasure, sir." The pod's distress beacon cut off mid-transmission. In the aftermath, as the last echoes of battle faded, the Bastion turned its prow toward the stars. Behind them, New Carthage's colonists were already sending their thanks, their messages flooding the comm channels. But Vance barely heard them. His eyes were on the tactical display, where new contacts flickered at the edge of sensor range. "Captain," Kara asked, noticing his expression. Vance straightened. "Send a full battle report to Earth Command and tell the Vengeance to prep for warp." This was just the beginning. The bridge crew exchanged glances. No one spoke, but they didn't need to. The Vorac had come for prey. They'd found something else entirely. The holographic displays flickered to life in the Galactic Council chambers, casting eerie blue light across the assembled delegates. The air was thick with the scent of nervous pheromones from a dozen different species. Ambassador Krelix of the Zeperian Dominion adjusted his breathing vents, his 4 hands trembling as he watched the battle footage replay for the 3rd time. "This cannot be real," whispered Councillor Vexis of the Selenian Hive, her antennae twitching in distress. "The Vorac harvesters have never been defeated in open battle." The footage showed the USN Bastion holding firm against the Vorac vanguard, its railgun salvos tearing through organic hulls with terrifying precision. Then came the moment that made Krelix's exoskeleton prickle. The arrival of the human reinforcements, their void lances carving through the maw like a hot knife through flesh. "You assured us they were primitive," Krelix hissed, turning to the Tarkadan representative. The armored alien shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "They were," the Tarkakan growled. "Their last recorded military engagement showed projectile weapons and fission warheads. Nothing like this." A new image appeared, Captain Elias Vance's face, his scarred features calm as he addressed the Vorac overseer. "You picked the wrong species to hunt." The words echoed in the chamber, followed by the screams of dying Vorac ships. Councillor Drax of the Riftborn Collective leaned forward, his translucent skin pulsing with agitation. They lured the harvesters. This was no desperate defense. It was a trap. Silence fell as the final moments played out. The Bastion ramming a Vorac cruiser, the swarm of human fighters tearing apart the fleeing remnants. The last transmission from Overseer Kroll, a raw, guttural scream of disbelief before his ship vanished in a fireball. Krelix's mandibles clicked nervously. He remembered the last time he had spoken of humanity in this very chamber. "Soft, skinned, slow to react," he had said. "They will never be more than a minor power." Now the hologram shifted to show Earth's orbit, hundreds of human ships, their sleek, angular hulls bristling with weapons the Council had never seen before. At the center loomed the USN Titan, a dreadnought that dwarfed even the Maw. Ambassador Krelix. The voice came from the shadows, Speaker Yuval of the Observers. "A species so ancient they rarely spoke at all. Your assessment of humanity was flawed." Krelix felt the weight of every gaze in the room, The Selenians, the Tarkans, even the usually aloof Riftborn, all waiting for his response. They hid their strength, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. They let us believe they were weak. Let the Vorac believe it. A new transmission played, Admiral Graves of the United Earth Stellar Navy, standing on the bridge of the Titan. His voice was calm, measured, but it carried the weight of a species that had just rewritten galactic history. The Vorac came to harvest. They found wolves instead. The footage ended. The chamber remained silent. Krelix looked around at his fellow delegates. The Zephyrian Dominion had once voted to restrict human expansion. The Tarkans had laughed when Earth requested a seat on the council. Now their faces bore the same expression, dawning realization, edged with fear. They were never prey, Councillor Vexis said softly. They were the hunters all along. Krelix said nothing. He didn't need to. The evidence was there. In the wreckage of the Vorac fleet, in the cold precision of human tactics, in the way Admiral Graves had looked directly into the recording, as if he knew exactly who would be watching. The message was clear. Humanity had shown its fangs, and the galaxy would never forget it. The void above Earth shimmered as the last of the Vorac wreckage burned up in the atmosphere. The US Bastion drifted among the debris, her hull scorched but intact. Captain Elias Vance stood on the observation deck, watching the glowing embers streak across the sky like falling stars. Lieutenant Kara Holt joined him, her hands clasped behind her back. They're calling it the Battle of New Carthage back home, she said. Newsfeeds are running it on loop. Every colony, every station, they all saw what we did. Vance didn't smile. Good, let them see. A soft chime sounded from the comm panel. Captain, came the voice of the bridge officer. Admiral Graves is hailing priority channel. Vance exhaled. Patch him through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Graves, a man whose face carried the weight of 100 battles. His sharp eyes locked onto Vance. You did well out there, Elias. Better than well. Just following the playbook, sir. Graves chuckled. The playbook you wrote. He turned slightly, gesturing to something off-screen. But we're not done yet. The Council's watching. The whole damn galaxy is time to send a message. They won't forget. The feed expanded, revealing Earth's orbital space. Hundreds of ships, destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts, gleamed in the sunlight, their formations tight and precise. And at the center of it all, the US Titan, a monstrous vessel twice the size of the Vorac Moor, her hull bristling with weapons. Kara's breath caught. Is that our new flagship? Graves confirmed. And she is not alone. Across the system, more ships blinked into existence. Reinforcements from Mars, the Jovian colonies, even the Outer Rim. The armada swelled until it blotted out the stars. Vance finally allowed himself a grim smile. They won't make the same mistake twice. Graves nodded. Open a galaxy-wide channel. A technician's voice echoed through the comms. Channel Livin 321. The Admiral straightened, his voice carrying across the void. To the Galactic Council, to every species who believed humanity was weak, look upon this fleet and know your error. His words were calm, measured, but carried the weight of a coming storm. We did not seek this fight. The Vorac brought it to us. They thought us prey. They were wrong. On the bridge of the Bastion, the crew stood silent, listening. Kara's fingers tightened around the railing. You have seen what happens when humanity is pushed, Graves continued. We do not start wars. We end them. The transmission cut. For a long moment no one spoke. Then, across the fleet, a single signal pulsed, a rallying cry, a warning, a promise. Kara let out a slow breath. What now? Vance watched the Titan's engines flare to life, the massive ship turning toward the jump point. Now, he said. They learn. The armada moved as one, a tidal wave of steel and fire, heading for the stars somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers. The Zephyrian ambassador stared at the feed, his scales dull with fear. The Vorac had been the hunters. Now they were the hunted. And humanity. Humanity was just getting started.